combined with the world's largest set of force plates under the surface to essentially find out the stress points on the athletes' bodies so that Nike can build shoes that counter them. And there's some pretty cool outcomes from all this data. Like, they realize that grip in the forward direction is really useful because it means your feet stay planted as you're running and you preserve your momentum. But also that too much grip as you're rotating is associated with injury, which is why Nike's newer cleats now have these V-shaped studs, which are specifically for grip when you're sprinting forward on the fronts of your feet, but then these rounded ones at the back, which can release more easily when you stop and you want to pivot. Or, as part of this lab, they also take really detailed 3D scans of the athlete's feet. And by doing this enough times, they've figured out the subtle ways that feet are different between gender and ethnicity, which is why when you go to Japan, for example, if you buy the same shoe that is technically the same size, then for a lot of models, that shoe will still actually have a slightly different shape to the same one in the US. But then the other finding is that some people would benefit from a shoe that propels you forward. So this is Nike's Project Amplify, which they're calling the world's first powered footwear system. When it actually launches in most likely 2027, it will look like this. And so what I got to test is the latest working prototype, which looks a little simpler, let's say, but it is a super interesting glimpse into the potential future of footwear. So there's a few parts to this. There's the shoe, which importantly is actually a pretty great shoe without anything else added to it. I'm liking the fact there's no laces. Whoa, they're really foamy. So then that shoe connects upwards to this arm, which is what contains the motor and all the processing power. Yes, processing power in your shoes. And then at the very top is the cuff, which totally doesn't sound like something you would wear when you're on a watch list. Also, though, really satisfying to loosen and tighten. And then you just start walking or running. You take 6 to 8 steps, and by the time you've done that, your shoes have used their processing power to figure out how you're walking, your stride, your gait, and then they start to lift your feet for you, giving you about a 20% increase in the total power of your legs.
And that's the last they saw of this sample.
You kind of feel the pulling force at the back of your foot, so your heel lifts up like that, and then you take the rest of the step by yourself. There's also an app where you can specify whether you want to walk or run or how you want that to feel, but you don't actually need to use it. The shoes figure it out by themselves.
So the moment you start running, it's initially heavier than usual. You can't run quite as fast. And then very quickly you can run a lot faster.
Now, there are some obvious questions. My first question when I look at that is, who is it for? It wouldn't be a fair gadget for an athlete to use. And then I actually like the idea when I go out to town that I'm just burning calories and I'm kind of doing a good thing for myself.
When I think about who it's for, we build a marathon shoe today that returns more metabolic effort to you than 10 years ago. People don't run less because of that. It actually, I think, unleashes the opposite.
It's a fair point. I mean, the way I see it, I think it's going to be a long time before the average user is going to want to start charging their shoes every morning. But there are 3 scenarios in which I could actually see it being useful now. These things mean that you can put in normal amounts of effort, but get to your location 20% faster. So if that extra 20% speed would be the difference between you choosing to walk somewhere and you hopping in an Uber, then I guess it would be an investment into your health. And the pace increase is real. I kept finding myself just ahead of the group that I was walking with without really realizing it was happening because I was just walking.
And interesting thing I've noticed, everyone around me is panting. I'm not out of breath. Oh, whoa. So I'd say it probably perfectly counters the incline, the pretty steep incline of this hill. So I'm walking up, but with the same amount of effort as if it was flat ground.
And then third,
I run. My mum walks the dog around the block. Maybe we could jog together. There's some things that you've probably never been able to do that could be interesting.
someone who couldn't usually keep up with you suddenly being able to. And then what I think is really clever here is the battery, because it is custom designed so that it can just wrap around that cuff. That's super important because this is not a small battery. This is enough for 10 kilometers of powered walking or running. But by wrapping around your leg, it still keeps it, I would say, looking discreet.